Heartwarming hero, homeless veteran stuns court as his name revealed, inspiring everyone present. John Matthews stood at the front of the packed courtroom, a once proud Army veteran now reduced to a mere shadow of himself. The air was thick with judgment as whispers of disdain fluttered among the townsfolk, filling every crevice of the small Midwestern courtroom. Outside, children's laughter echoed from the nearby park, where fathers played catch with their sons, a bittersweet reminder of the life John had once cherished with a loving family and a home of his own. Seated at the back, his daughter Emily Matthews clutched the faded strap of her purse, feeling torn in knots. The news of her father's impending trial hit her like a freight train, bringing shame and love crashing into one another. Her mother's harsh words about John's failures echoed in her ears, but still, an ember of loyalty flickered in her heart. It was hard for her to reconcile the man she barely knew, the soldier who once held her in his arms, spun her around, and made her believe that they could conquer the world. John's thoughts swirled chaotically, memories flashing before him like a slideshow: his days in uniform, standing tall under the flag. Then came the heartbreak of bills that piled up, job loss, and ultimately, homelessness. Each fragment of his past felt like a knife, carving out a piece of who he was until only the hollow shell remained, now standing on the precipice of judgment. The very thought of jail for a minor infraction seemed cruel, a punishment far greater than the crime. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as John's name was finally called. It was now or never. He moved forward, feeling the weight of 100 staring eyes. And then, like an unspooling tapestry, John started to share his story, the truth of his valor and sacrifice battered by the storms of life back home. His voice quaked as he recounted the battles faced on foreign soil, the nights spent waking up cold and alone. "I fought for my country, but when I returned, I found myself fighting for dignity and a second chance," he said, the raw truth capturing the room's attention. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As John's story unfolded, the atmosphere began to change. The whispers of judgment transformed into murmurs of understanding. Emily watched, heart racing, as the hardened faces of the townspeople softened. The applause that erupted when the judge finally revealed John's true identity, the hero hidden beneath the layers of hardship, sent shivers down her spine. Each clap echoed not just in the courtroom but inside Emily's heart, igniting the flickering flame of love and forgiveness she yearned to embrace. But as elation swept the room, the tension lingered. What would justice look like for a man who had sacrificed everything? The warmth of applause couldn't quite erase the rifts created by shame and poverty. John stood in the spotlight, a battle-weary soldier reborn but unrecognized, while Emily felt a storm brewing. Theirs was a journey of reconciliation just beginning. How would they navigate the inevitable questions of dignity and redemption that loomed ahead? The crowd was left to ponder as they fell silent, caught in the poignancy of their shared humanity. The applause faded, leaving an echo that hung in the air like champagne bubbles slowly dissipating. John stood there, feeling exposed under the scrutinizing gaze of everyone present. The judge cleared her throat, seeming to sense the weight of the moment, the gravity of what lay ahead. "Mr. Matthews," she began, her voice steady yet compassionate, "you have shown remarkable bravery, not just in your service but today in sharing your story. However, we must still address the incident that brought you here." John nodded slowly, bracing himself for whatever came next. He could feel Emily's eyes on him, a soft warmth that urged him to stand tall. He thought of the children playing outside, carefree and unaware of life's burdens. He wanted to be a father like that again, a protector, a hero in his daughter's eyes. "Given the context of your situation," the judge continued, "I am inclined to consider an alternative to incarceration." There was a pause, a breath held tight in the courtroom. "I am offering you probation and mandatory counseling. It's a chance for you to reclaim your life." A wave of relief washed over John. It wasn't everything, but it was something to build on, something to grasp. As the crowd murmured their approval, John felt a tremor of hope stir within him. But the shadows of past mistakes still loomed, shadows that whispered doubts in the darkest corners of his mind. Did he truly deserve this chance? His fingers tightened around the podium, the rough wood digging into his palms. Emily slipped out of her seat, making her way toward him, a fire of determination in her step. As she approached, her eyes sparkled with a mixture of pride and concern. "Dad," she said, her voice a gentle whisper, "you did what you had to do. You fought just like you always taught me." His heart swelled at her words, and a smile cracked through the hard facade he had worn for so long. For the first time in years, it felt like the distance between them was narrowing. "I'm trying to find my way back, Em. Sometimes I don't know what to do next." "You start by being here," she replied, the softness of her tone battling the weight of their shared history. "You start by showing up for yourself and for me." As the gavel came down, officially marking the end of this chapter, John felt a surge of clarity wash over him. Maybe it was the beginning, after all. But just as warmth spread through his chest, the flickering memory of his struggles surged back. Would it be enough? Would counseling really help him break the cycle that had kept him tangled in despair? He glanced back at the crowd, faces still bearing witness to his rebirth. Uncertainty wrestled with hope, and he felt a chill and then, a jolt as he caught sight of a familiar figure among the townsfolk. A veteran he had once served beside stood at the back of the courtroom, watching him with a mix of recognition and concern. John's heart raced. What did that look in his eyes mean? As gratitude slipped back into doubt, John realized their stories were entwined. There was a mission ahead. They would need each other to find healing. Could he step forward once again, not just for himself, but for his fellow veterans who silently battled their own demons? Would he be brave enough to reach out? Lost in this new wave of uncertainty, John took a deep breath, ready to uncover what awaited him next. The next chapter of his life was about to unfold, and it could change everything. The buzz of the crowd faded into a low hum as John stepped away from the podium. Each footfall felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of the past clung to him, reluctant to let go. He started mechanically, his mind teetering on the edge of panic. Behind him, whispers filled the room. "Did you hear what the judge said? What a powerful story." John's pulse thudded in his ears. He felt exposed, naked even. Emily's hand slipped into his, grounding him. Her warmth spread through his fingers, pulling him back into the present. "We're so proud of you, Dad," she murmured, squeezing lightly. His heart fluttered at her support. "Thanks, Em," he replied, forcing a smile. But doubts crept back in. He wasn't sure he was deserving of any pride. As he scanned the courtroom, the weight of eyes shifted his way. Though the applause had died down, he could still sense their judgment, their curiosity. The same townsfolk that had known him as a soldier now saw a fallen man. "Hey, John." A voice cut through the noise. It was Chris, the veteran he'd spotted earlier, making his way through the throng. Chris's face was lined, eyes deep with shared stories, visible scars etched into their history. "Long time no see," John said, heart racing. Chris's presence felt both like an anchor and a new storm. "Yeah, too long," Chris replied, glancing around. "I'm glad you're still here, man. I caught the end of your speech. What you said, it hit home." John dropped his gaze, suddenly aware that the shame of past mistakes felt heavier in Chris's presence. "I'm just trying to pick up the pieces," he said quietly. "I'm not sure how to start." "We start by talking," Chris said, leaning closer. "Their essay group I've been a part of, guys and gals getting through the same stuff. We meet every week. It's raw, but it helps." John's heart raced at the notion of sharing his burden with others who understood. "I don't know." The familiar attempt to retreat crept in, but the urgency in Chris's eyes pulled him back. "You're not alone in this," Chris insisted, determination simmering in his voice. "You can't do it all on your own. Let us face it together." The warmth of camaraderie bubbled up, and for the first time, John felt a sliver of hope unfurl. A glimpse of a way forward, one he hadn't envisioned before. "I'd like that." "Good. Let us grab a coffee and you can tell me everything." "I know a place," Chris said with an easy smile. As they walked out of the courthouse together, John caught sight of Emily waving goodbye from behind the crowd, her face bright with hope. He felt a swell of gratitude mingled with fear. Giving it one last shot seemed monumental, and the ghosts of his past whispered warnings. Could he really do this? He looked at Chris, who matched him step for step, a quiet strength in his stride. "Let us go," John said, his voice steadier. They stepped into the sunlight, and the warmth felt different today, a renewed promise rather than the lingering shadows. Yet just as confidence blossomed within him, an unexpected thought jolted through his mind. What if facing his past with Chris wasn't just about healing? What if it forced him to confront truths he had buried deep? As they turned the corner toward the cafe, determination wrestled with fear inside him. John could feel the winds of change, a storm was brewing, but this time, he wouldn't face it alone. And in that moment, he realized the true battle lay ahead. Could he muster the courage to face not just his demons, but the reality of his life? With a deep breath, he embraced the uncertainty as he stepped into the day, ready to find out. The cafe was a small, unassuming place tucked away between a bakery and a bookstore. The scent of brewed coffee mixed with the sweet notes of baked goods wafted through the air, pulling John in with promises of comfort. As he walked in, he took in the rustic wooden tables and worn leather chairs, the kind of cozy atmosphere that felt like a warm embrace. It felt good to be inside, away from the buzzing crowd, if only for a moment. Chris ordered 2 coffees at the counter, leaving John a moment to breathe. The gentle clatter of cups and cheerful chatter of patrons surrounded him, like a distant melody. But even in this peaceful environment, John's heart raced. What if sharing his story was too much? What if he revealed more than he intended? Chris returned, setting a steaming cup in front of John. "Here you go," he said, a smile dancing on his lips. "Let us have it." "Thanks," John replied, wrapping his hands around the hot cup, seeking warmth. For a second, silence hung between them. Chris leaned forward, his expression serious but encouraging. "Tell me what's going on, man. No pressure, just share what you feel comfortable with." John hesitated, the shadows of his past creeping back. "I don't even know where to start," the words tumbled out, heavy with regret. "When I got out, everything felt so different. I thought I could just jump back in, you know? But it wasn't that easy." Chris nodded, his eyes understanding. "It usually isn't. Tell me what happened after you left service." "I came home. Tried finding a job. I thought I would be welcomed back like a hero. But John's voice faltered. It felt like everyone expected me to be the same person I was before. But inside, I was struggling." He looked away, unable to meet Chris's gaze, afraid of the disappointment he might see there. "You're not the only one," Chris said, his voice steady and reassuring. "We've all fought battles no one else can see. You don't have to go through it alone." With a deep breath, John continued, "I ended up losing my marriage. My kids didn't understand. I was just a shadow of what I used to be." The pain in John's voice cut through the air. It hung there, raw and exposed. "I made mistakes. I lost my way." Taking a sip of his coffee, Chris leaned back, giving John space to process. "It's important to own those mistakes. But also to forgive yourself. It's part of healing." John felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. "Forgiveness? I don't think I deserve it." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Chris said firmly. "That's why we meet, to help each other find that chance. I see a fighter in you, John. Don't let your past define you. A flicker of something sparked in John's chest. Hope? Perhaps the light had finally peeked through the clouds that overshadowed him. What if I mess it up again? Then we'll face it together, Chris replied, his voice unwavering, his sincerity palpable. John felt a warmth spreading within him as though the coffee had ignited a fire. It was hard to believe that someone could show such faith, especially when his own had waned. The walls around his heart felt a little less impenetrable today. As they delved deeper into conversation, John's resolve started to strengthen. Perhaps this was just the beginning of something different. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he had someone beside him now, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. But as they finished their drinks, a thought tugged at John's mind. What would he confront first in this journey? Before he could unpack that, Chris leaned in. There's a meeting tomorrow night. I can pick you up. You ready for that? John froze, the weight of the invitation heavy. His pulse quickened, caught between fear and possibility. Yeah, he started, but hesitation flooded his thoughts. He didn't get a chance to finish before Chris smirked, a playful glint in his eye. Don't think too hard about it. You've already taken the first step by being here. John took a deep breath, the air thick with uncertainty. Could he really do this? Okay, he said, more to himself than to Chris. Let us do it. With that, they stepped back into the world outside, where the sun shone bright. Yet, as John walked alongside Chris, an uncomfortable truth simmered beneath the surface. What lay ahead might force him to confront aspects of himself he had tried desperately to hide. Would he be ready for that? The hum of the crowd buzzed in his ears once more, louder now, just as he dared to hope. Would this choice mark the start of a new chapter, or would it unleash even deeper shadows within him? With the sun slanting low in the sky, John felt a swell of anxiety mixed with an odd optimism as he walked with Chris toward the car. The weight of his decision lingered like a stone in his pocket. He could already sense the tension in his chest tightening, a blend of nerves and fear coiling around hope. What if he stepped into those meetings and found himself drowning instead of swimming? Hey, you okay? Chris asked, breaking John's spiral of thoughts. Yeah, just thinking, John replied, turning to meet Chris's gaze. There was something comforting about his friend's presence. It felt like the kind of support he once thought was only a memory. What if I freeze up? What if I can't talk? First off, you don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just listen. Take it all in. You're not alone in this, Chris reassured him, the warmth of his words wrapping around John like the blanket he hadn't realized he needed. They reached Chris's car, a reliable, unremarkable sedan, but it didn't matter. The steel and glass held an adventure yet unfolding. It's just a meeting, Chris continued, slipping into the driver's seat. And it's different. Everyone in there knows what it's like to fight their demons. You might be surprised. John nodded but felt a pang of doubt still buzzing in the back of his mind. He recalled nights spent tossing and turning, haunted by memories he wished to forget. It was hard to shake the notion that he didn't belong anywhere anymore. Chris turned the key, and the car hummed to life. They pulled out onto the road, heading into the sunset, the golden rays spilling across the pavement like liquid light. John gazed out the window, watching strangers fade into silhouettes against the fading day. It's about community, Chris said, trying to pull John from his thoughts. People who understand. It can change how you see things, how you see yourself. For the first time, John was willing to lean into that possibility. Maybe it was worth the leap. With every mile, the horizon stretched before him, wide and open, full of potential. Yet even as the landscape shifted, so did the gnawing uncertainty within him. Are you scared? John asked quietly, glancing sideways at Chris. Honestly? Yeah. A little. But it's not about being brave all the time. It's about showing up. That's what takes real guts. Chris's honesty echoed in the small space between them, a kind of silent pact forming, the car began to slow as they arrived at a modest community center. The building was unassuming, but the steady trickle of people filtering in suggested it was filled with gentle courage. John's heart raced again. Was he really ready to share his burdens? "Let us go," Chris said, reaching for the door. John hesitated, caught in another whirlwind of feelings. Should he turn back? Was he truly prepared for what awaited inside? "Wait," he called out, his voice shaky. Chris turned, concern flashing across his face. "What's up? What if they judge me? What if I don't fit in?" The fear spilled out like a tidal wave. "Then you'll learn from it. But I promise you, it's not like that. Everyone has their own story, their own struggles," Chris responded, the conviction in his tone lighting a small fire in John's chest. With a deep breath, he recalled the warmth of the cafe, the weight lifted by simple conversation. "I want to try," he finally said, surprising even himself with the resolve in his voice. "Good choice," Chris said, a proud smile breaking across his face. They stepped out into the evening air, the scent of autumn mingling with the hopeful energy in the atmosphere. John took in the sight of others arriving, their faces reflecting a mix of determination and apprehension, each navigating their own path toward healing. As they walked toward the entrance, John felt a flicker of hope growing within him, stronger than before. But just as they reached the door, a noise caught his attention, a heavy voice calling from behind. "Wait! John!" He turned, heart pounding, feeling all the moments of the past colliding with the future he yearned for. Who was calling his name? As he turned, uncertainty swelled within him again, threatening to engulf that small spark of hope he had just discovered. What now awaited him, standing there in the fading light, was a mystery he had not anticipated. John's breath caught in his throat as he turned to face the voice. It belonged to a man he'd never expected to see again, Mike, an old friend from his military days. The years had carved deep lines across Mike's face, but his eyes still shone with that familiar fire, the kind that ignited memories of nights spent sharing their dreams under starry skies. "Mike?" John exclaimed, feeling a rush of emotions. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you were coming to this meeting," Mike said, pushing through the crowd. The shuffle of feet and whispering voices faded into the background as John focused on the warmth radiating from Mike's presence. "I can't believe it's really you." John scanned Mike's appearance, noting the worn-out jacket and the faded fatigues. He felt a pang of guilt. "How have you been?" The words tumbled out, heavy with unfulfilled concern. "A lot has happened since we last met. I've been in and out of shelters. But I'm trying to get back on my feet, you know." There was a pause, a weight carried in the air between them. "I've found these meetings really help. I just thought, maybe you could use it too." 100 questions swirled inside John's mind. Why had Mike come into his life again at this moment? "I never thought you'd be here, man," he stammered, his heart racing. It felt surreal. They'd shared dreams of brighter days, and now Mike was the one trying to light the way. "Trust me, it's good for me. I find solace in being around people who understand." "You should join us," Mike encouraged, his eyes gleaming with sincerity. "You can't keep running away from what you've been through." The doors of the community center loomed behind him, representing a path to healing he had never dared to take until now. He stood there, torn between the urge to step inside and the shadow of familiar fears creeping back in. His fists clenched at his sides, fighting the panic rising within him, but as he looked at Mike, he saw not just an old friend but a reflection of himself. They both wandered through the valleys of despair, each bearing scars that signified their survival. "You're right," John admitted, his voice steadier now. "I need to face this." Mike's smile broke like dawn over the horizon. "I'll be right there with you, John. We're in this together." John took a deep breath, measuring the possibilities. He could feel hope nudging at his heart, pushing back against the doubt. With Mike, maybe he could find himself again. Maybe this was the moment they would both reclaim their stories together. "Let us go," John said, the decision forging a sense of unity between them. He stepped forward, heart pounding, with Mike by his side. As they walked toward the entrance, a wave of uncertainty still brushed against him, but it was different now. It felt tempered with a simmering strength. As they reached the door, the chatter from inside seeped through, a murmur of hope blending with vulnerability. The comforting realization washed over him. This was not just about facing his fate alone, it was about rekindling friendships and supporting one another through the trials ahead. But just as they embraced the threshold, John's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out to see an unfamiliar number. A chill ran down his spine. Whoever it was, they were calling at the most crucial moment. Taking one last look at Mike, John hesitated. What if this call changed everything again? What if it was someone from his past, someone he had tried to escape? As he hovered between two worlds, he wondered if he could trust this newfound strength, or if he'd slip back into darkness once more. What awaited him on the other end of the line? With so much at stake, he felt the weight of the moment bear down on him. John's heart raced as he stared at the screen, the unfamiliar number glaring back at him like an ominous warning. He could feel Mike's gaze on him, a curious mix of concern and encouragement. Every instinct told him to ignore the call, to let it slip into the ether where it belonged. But something deeper urged him to answer. "Are you okay?" Mike asked, his voice barely above a whisper as he watched the tension weave its way through John's body. "Yeah," John replied, but the word felt hollow. He swiped to answer the call, his thumb trembling slightly. The line crackled to life, and a voice he hadn't heard in years pierced the silence. "John? It's Sarah." John's stomach dropped. Sarah. The name evoked a rush of memories, both sweet and painful. They had shared dreams, laughter, and plans before life took them on different paths. Her voice held an edge of urgency, pulling him back to a time he thought he had locked away. "Sarah," he said, forcing the word out. "It's been a long time." Her breath caught for a moment, the pause thick with unspoken words. "I know. I'm sorry to call out of the blue, but I need to talk to you. It's important." Mike's eyebrow raised, and John could feel the weight of that nonverbal question. Important how? His heart thumped louder. "Can it wait?" John asked, glancing at the door behind him, an invitation to hope. "No, it can't." The urgency in her tone was unmistakable. "I don't want to interrupt anything, but I heard about the meeting you're attending. I wanted to make sure you're okay. We need to talk about the past, John." "About what happened?" A storm of emotions raged within him. They didn't talk about the past, not after everything that had happened. Not after the anger and pain of their separation. But the idea of going back there, even for a moment, felt frighteningly familiar. "John?" Sarah's voice sliced through the chaos in his mind, snapping him back to the moment. "Are you there?" "I'm here," he managed to breathe out, but with a heavy heart. "I'm actually about to go into a meeting with some friends. I thought I could start over. Please, don't shut me out. I know you're trying to move forward, but there are things you don't know. I can't lose you again." Her words hung in the air, heavy and compelling, pulling at him with a magnetic force. Mike stepped forward slightly, placing a hand on John's arm, grounding him in that moment. "John," he said quietly, as if sensing the battle brewing inside him. "You don't have to face this alone. Whatever it is, whatever she needs to say, you're strong enough to handle it. I'm right here." John's heart beat furiously as he thought about Sarah's words and what they might unlock. He deeply desired to embrace the hope of the meeting, the support of a friend he hadn't seen in ages. But now, facing the remnants of his past could shatter that fragile optimism. I just don't know if I can," he replied, his voice wavering. He felt the door behind him pulling him in, beckoning him toward hope, while the call from Sarah threatened to drag him back. I'll wait for you, she said, her voice softening. But please don't push me away again. John turned his back to the door, the uncertainty swirling in his chest. Should he dive into the chaotic depths with Sarah, or step into the brighter unknown with Mike? The air was thick with waiting. He could choose the path that lay ahead, but which would lead him toward healing? As he stood in the doorway, the weight of his decision hung heavy. Would he pick the call from the past that threatened his present? Or would he take a step toward a new beginning, guided by an old friend? In that moment, everything hung in balance. What choice would he make? The seconds ticked by, each one heavier than the last, time stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. John could hear his heart pounding in his ears, drowning out everything else. The laughter from the nearby cafe, the distant sounds of traffic, even the hum of electricity in the air faded into a blur. It was just him and Sarah's voice, vibrating through the phone, pulling him back into a past that had been so bittersweet. John? Sarah's voice broke through again, sharper this time, filled with a pleading urgency. Please, don't leave me hanging. We need to talk. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words settle deep within him. There had always been an attraction between them, something that felt both inevitable and terrifying. When things ended, it had left a gaping hole in his heart, a wound that hadn't properly healed. I need time, he stammered, glancing briefly at Mike, who watched him intently, eyes full of empathy. Time for what? Sarah's frustration laced her tone. To forget? To run away again? Do you really think that's going to make this go away? Because it won't. It'll just make it worse. John flinched at her honesty. It was a raw reminder that some wounds can't be avoided, no matter how hard he tried. I'm not running, Sarah, I just what? She interrupted. What is it that you need? I know what I need, and that's to talk. Please. He felt Mike squeeze his arm gently. The gesture was a lifeline, reminding him that he wasn't alone. But he still felt paralyzed, pulled in two different directions. Okay, he said finally, his voice firm against the uncertainty wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. I can talk. But I can't meet right now. Not when I've got my friends here. Can we not now? Sarah interrupted, sniffing back whatever emotion she was wrestling with. Not ever, if you wait too long. I'll be at the park where we used to go. Just think about it, what did we promise each other? That we wouldn't run when things got hard. He closed his eyes momentarily, remembering that broken promise as vividly as if it were etched into his skin. Sarah, she sighed, frustration and sorrow echoing through that simple sound. Just 5 o'clock, John. Don't leave me hanging. The line went dead, and suddenly he felt lighter, but also burdened again by the weight of unspoken words. What did she say? Mike's voice pierced through the wave of silence settling around them. She wanted to talk. About everything. John hesitated but couldn't escape the emotions crashing over him. She made me remember things I'd rather forget. Things that maybe need to be said? Mike suggested gently. He tilted his head, as if reading John's confused soul. You can't move forward before confronting the past. It's like carrying a backpack full of bricks, you can't run until you throw them away. Despite himself, John laughed, though it felt shaky. I wish it were that easy. It's not, Mike replied, his voice a soothing balm to John's racing thoughts. But it's a step. It's a chance to find closure. You've got this. John nodded slowly, absorbing Mike's words. He didn't hardly feel ready, but there was something in him that longed for resolution, something that craved closure. What if it's too late for that? John's voice was barely above a whisper, vulnerability spilling out. It's never too late. You have more strength than you give yourself credit for. Looking at the doorway, John understood now that it wasn't just about Sarah or their past. It was about him too, about becoming whole again. With a deep breath, he chose to embrace the turmoil, to face the specter of what once was rather than hide. All of Mike's encouragement pushed him toward the edge of that decision. He would go find Sarah. But as he turned to leave, a sudden bone-chilling realization gripped him. What if the past held secrets he wasn't ready to hear? What if she was about to show him something that could change everything? Stepping away from the door, John felt the tendrils of fate wrapping around him, urging him onward into unknown territory. Would he find answers, or deeper questions at the park? The park was just a few blocks away, but each step felt heavier than the last. John's stomach twisted with anxiety and nostalgia, memories flooding in like water through an open dam. What would he say? How could he even begin to express everything that had built up over the years? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the trees that swayed gently in the breeze. It almost felt like a scene from a movie, but the reality felt far less polished. He rounded a corner and spotted the familiar bench where they spent countless afternoons. It was like a time capsule, forever holding their laughter and light-hearted conversations. As he approached, his heart raced. What if she had changed? What if she was different from the girl he once knew? The one who would roll her eyes at his dad jokes and ask him to try again. And then he saw her. Sarah sat on the bench, her hair catching the sun just right, making it glow like gold. She looked lost in thought, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the patterns on the wood. For a brief moment, it felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the space between them. "John," she whispered, almost as if afraid to say it louder, but her eyes sparked with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Hey!" His voice barely escaped his lips. He shifted from foot to foot, caught in awkwardness. "Thanks for coming." She smiled softly, but there was an unspoken tension hanging between them. "You said you wanted to talk." He sat next to her, the weight of the past heavy in the air around them. "I did." She turned toward him, her expression serious. "I've spent so much time replaying everything in my head." The words spun in his mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind, swirling and rushing. "Me too. I didn't know how to approach it. We left so much unresolved." A flicker of vulnerability flashed in her eyes. "It's like we were both too scared to face what happened. But avoiding it didn't make it go away." Silence hung between them, a breath away from overwhelming. Each second stretched out, begging for the weight of stories left untold. What if this is harder than we think? John finally broke it, his voice trembling with emotion. "What if I don't have the right answers?" "Maybe it's not about having the right answers." Sarah leaned in, her gaze steady. "Maybe it's just about being brave enough to ask the questions. To face it together, even if it hurts." He could see tears threatening at the corners of her eyes, a quiet reminder of all they had shared. Memories washed over him, the laughter, the fights, the undeniable connection they had forged before they let the world tear them apart. "Sarah, what are you feeling? What do you really want to know?" He held his breath as she took a deep breath, the weight of it palpable. "I want to know why we fell apart." Her voice was steady, a contrast to the tremors in his heart. "What pushed us away when all we did was love each other?" He felt a lump in his throat, and the past loomed large, ready to unleash secrets he had buried deep down. Because he hesitated, "I don't have the answers tonight." Disappointment flashed across her face for just a second, but she quickly softened again. "I know. It's okay. But I need to be honest. I think about us." He searched for the right words, grappling with the truth he feared most. Maybe facing it head-on would finally allow him to heal, to let go of the fear that had clung to him for years. But when he opened his mouth, nothing came out. Instead, the park around them faded into a blur, nothing but the two of them remained, caught between the weight of the past and the promise of what could still be. As he searched her face, the question became clear: was he ready to uncover the truth they had both run from? And just as he felt that moment draw closer, a distant voice called out for help. A nearby commotion broke the tension, pulling their attention away. What was that? Sarah asked, startled by the interruption. John's heart raced. Would they be pulled back into chaos before they found their answers? Or would this unexpected event lead them toward newfound clarity in a way he never imagined? The moment hung in the air, charged with tension. John turned instinctively toward the noise. Shouts and cries pierced the peaceful aura of the park. A crowd was gathering, drawn to a scene just beyond the trees. Instinct took over, and John felt his heart race even faster. "Let's check it out," he said, as he leaned slightly forward, needing to take action. Without waiting for Sarah's response, he strode toward the commotion, adrenaline coursing through him. As they rounded the corner, a young boy cried out, surrounded by a swirl of panic. He had fallen off his bike and scraped his knee, tears streaming down his face. The adults around him looked on with concern, but John felt something pull him closer. "Hey, buddy, it's gonna be okay." John knelt beside the boy, speaking softly as he examined the scraped skin. "It hurts now, I know, but we're going to make it better." Sarah moved forward too, her instincts guiding her as she pulled out a clean tissue from her pocket and offered it to John. "Here, use this," she said gently. Their proximity created a bubble of warmth, pushing aside all that had felt heavy just moments ago. John could feel Sarah's presence reaffirming his sense of direction. He dabbed at the boy's wound, then looked up at him, matching his hopeful smile with tenderness. "It's gonna sting a little, but just breathe through it. Can you do that for me?" The boy nodded, bravely fighting back tears. In that moment, a soft connection formed. As John tended to the boy, he realized something deep within himself was shifting. Memories rushed to the surface. He was a father once, more than a soldier. "Hey, you're brave, you know that?" John whispered as he applied a bandage to the boy's knee. "You'll be riding again in no time." The boy's tears slowly receded, replaced by a hesitant smile. The adults around them sighed in relief, knowing the hurt wasn't as dire as they initially feared. As John stood, he glanced back at Sarah, who was watching him with a look of awe that made the corners of his heart flutter. "Good job," she said softly, pride lacing her words. A palpable connection formed between them, the walls they built starting to fracture under the light of shared compassion. In the chaos, John realized this helped him reclaim a piece of himself he thought was lost forever. He wasn't just a veteran or a man in turmoil, he was a protector. A father. As they moved back towards their original spot, John could feel the weight of his past drifting further away. "I didn't realize how important that was to me," he admitted, heart open. "I've needed to help someone again." Sarah's smile widened. "You did that beautifully. You showed him his strength. Just like you're beginning to show your own." Feeling buoyed by that moment, John took a deep breath, the familiar park now infused with newfound purpose. He turned to face Sarah, an unspoken understanding between them. "I think I'm ready to talk about us now," he began, his voice steady. "What happened? What broke us apart?" Sarah nodded, the vulnerability on her face causing his heart to race. "Okay," she said, pulling in a deep breath. "But it's not just about the past for me. It's about wanting to see if there's a future." That simple acknowledgement washed over John like a soothing balm. The journey ahead might be complex and filled with uncertainties, but as they faced each other again, he felt hopeful. The immediate challenge was the truth, and in the moments of honesty, healing awaited. "I want to know how to repair us," John said, his voice barely above a whisper yet firm. "We were always stronger together. Can we find that again?" The look in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. "I believe we can. It starts with honesty and vulnerability." A warmth bloomed in his chest, accompanied by a wave of courage. Together, they could face the storms life had thrown their way. Together, they could rewrite the chapters that had gone so wrong. As they sat back on the bench, the world around them faded again, leaving just the two of them in their cocoon, ready to face their intertwined fate. "Let me start," John said, heart racing but ready for the leap. "After everything that happened, I want you to know that I never stopped thinking about you. I know I hurt you." The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow around them, and he felt lighter, as if chains were breaking. Together, they began to speak, sharing feelings, truths, and regrets, a long unspoken dialogue that felt like the promise of a new dawn. The connection between them blossomed, and just beyond the park echoed the sounds of laughter, a testament to resilience and new beginnings. They had both fallen, but together, they were rising again. Now he knew, he could face anything, even the shadows of uncertainty, as long as Sarah was by his side. They would reclaim their lives, adding new chapters that spoke of bravery, hope, and love. In this moment, John understood that healing didn't always come easy, but with each shared story and every open heart, they were already on the right path. The road ahead promised to be tough, but he felt surer than ever that they could face it together. This was where the true journey began. They would no longer run. They would stand resolute, side by side, united by a love that had once been lost but was finally found. And as they exchanged those first tender words, he knew that tomorrow would bloom with limitless potential, reminding him that the scars of yesterday had prepared them to embrace whatever lay ahead. If you felt inspired by John and Sarah's journey, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Did it touch your heart? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions. Together, let's spread hope.